What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hoops and Huddles. I want to talk today about the Lakers versus Timberwolves play-in game that we just got to see last night. It was quite a wild game, I have to say. These play-in games, their intensity is playoff level. I don't know why the NBA insists, we'll see what they do in the future, but the idea that this is not considered a playoff game or it doesn't go towards playoff stats, it doesn't really make much sense to me. The intensity is there. You can see the players feel like it's a playoff game. So that's something the NBA needs to address. But I wanted to talk about the Lakers and their performance, their very up and down performance against the Timberwolves, because I think that we kind of got the best and the worst of the Lakers throughout that game. And so, let's get into it. The worst part about this is it looked like a lot of the Lakers players just weren't ready for this sort of intensity. I mean, again, I'm going to talk about this as if it's a playoff game. Austin Reeves, this is his first real playoff game. As he wasn't great by any stretch, but considering it was his first playoff game, I'm not really going to hold it against him. He did get one of those patented and ones where he kind of gets fouls and like chucks the ball up and he hits it. So, there's that's the bright spot. He's definitely going to improve. I'm sure he'll improve against the Grizzlies in the next round. Then you have D'Angelo Russell, who there's a lot made about quote-unquote playoff D'Lo going into this. He's not considered a great playoff performer. I mean, he's still very young, but what we saw was not very encouraging. I think he was like 1 for 8 or something like that. The turnovers were bad. He was a turnstile on defense. Overall, it was a horrendous performance from D'Angelo Russell. Now, I expect again, it could just be jitters. The Timberwolves played a really good defensive game, especially in that first half. I think that's something that D'Lo can kind of, get better at against the Grizzlies. Hopefully, Darvin Ham's not going to pull him from the starting lineup. He's going to have those opportunities again against the Grizzlies. So I think that we have to look out for that. Wenyen Gabriel, I mean, the Lakers have been kind of getting by with him on playing him to replace Anthony Davis's minutes when Anthony goes to the bench. And it's like, man, the Lakers have gotten lucky with him because he does bring a lot of effort and he brings a lot of energy, but he is undersized. Offensively, he's really not a threat. And we saw in this game that, man, like he is not ready. Again, I don't want to make too much of one game. We can see what he's like against the Grizzlies, but this is kind of why you brought in this is why you brought in Mo Bamba, to be honest, who didn't play at all. And this is also why you brought in Tristan Thompson. I mean, they need some size when AD sits down. And without AD, they don't win this game. I mean, this was a game that was won by such a razor-thin margin. If one or two things don't break the way they do, we'd be having a very different conversation. Anthony Davis made that boneheaded play at the end of regulation where he fouls Mike Conley for that three. That is just something you cannot do, especially in the playoffs. Like, can you imagine if you go to put like the Warriors away or the Suns away or even the Grizzlies away? We shouldn't even look past the Grizzlies, and then you do something like that. I mean, overtime is definitely not a given, especially with this Lakers team. They've been better in overtime post-trade deadline, but man, like this just cannot happen. Anthony Davis, you are better than that, sir. And I expect going forward. I mean, I expected this. He did it earlier in the year, so I would have said I expect him not to do it again. But I mean, man, you just can't be making those decisions. You gotta make the switch better than that. I know he said something post game about him and LeBron kind of got their signals crossed about who was supposed to switch, or LeBron didn't hear him or whatever it was. I don't know, but at the end of the day, man, you just cannot foul him like that. That is just like the Darvin Ham, said that before they inbounded the ball. Like, that's the one thing you can't do, and he went and did it. So that was incredibly frustrating. But Dennis Schroeder, like when we talk about the other guys, the younger guys struggling, Dennis Schroeder is the opposite of that. That guy came in. I mean, he's played in playoffs before. I still remember that 2020 series against the Rockets in the bubble when he was with Chris Paul, and he was so key in that series. And even against the Suns, like when the Lakers played the Suns in 2021 with him, he did make some plays. He did make a lot of hustle plays. I've always been a fan of Dennis Schroeder. He gets so much hatred online for a multitude of reasons. I think a lot of fans just kind of want a scapegoat when things go poorly, and you have Darvin Ham, you have Dennis Schroeder, and it's like that's kind of who people just want to point the finger at when something doesn't work. But man, this guy hustles. This guy puts in the effort. I saw a lot of Dennis Schroeder apologies tonight, which is great, considering he's on a veteran minimum contract. I mean, what more can you expect of a guy on that sort of contract to come in and be that third cog in the machine that wins essentially a playoff game for your team? I mean, you can't ask for better than that. And this is not just a one-off thing. He has put in that effort, and that's why Darvin Ham likes him a lot, because he is able to energize the team on defense. He is able to get some easy buckets from time to time. He did miss. There was one jumper. I can't remember exactly where in the game he took it. It was kind of pretty much a wide open jumper, as wide open as you're going to get. And he missed it, which was frustrating. But I mean, beyond that, he had such a stellar game. I was super happy to see that. And I don't think this is going to, it's not like he's going to now be inserted into the starting lineup or anything like that. I think the starting lineup is pretty much set unless, D'Lo really falls off a cliff. But the fact that he can kind of come in, they were saying this about Russ, come in and be that Energizer bunny off the bench. Russ wasn't that, but Dennis Schroeder can be that. And so that's something that I would look forward to seeing in a long playoff series. He's definitely one of the X factors, him and Austin Reeves for sure. And also Rui Hachimura as well. I don't want to forget Rui Hachimura. That guy came in. I don't think the Lakers hit a three until, I think he hit the first three of the game. And it was crucial because, man, to start this game, no one could score. AD hit one shot, and that was it for the first few minutes of this game. And it was tough to watch. It looked like everyone was tight. It looked like everyone was kind of shrinking in that moment. And, you don't worry about someone, especially like LeBron, who's just like, he's been in this moment a billion times before. But as soon as you kind of have this roster that isn't really battle tested, and then they look that tight, that's immediately you start to worry. And I immediately started to worry seeing that. But Rui came in, hit a three that kind of kick-started the Lakers offense out of the gate. And he was crucial down the stretch. He hit another three in overtime. It did frustrate me that like a lot of the possessions were going to die with, LeBron driving, him kicking out to Rui for a three. Like that's not Rui's game. Rui's game is driving and establishing his feet and going up for a mid-range shot. He had one opportunity to do that in the game. It was either in the fourth quarter or overtime, but he drove, took a mid-range shot, and unfortunately it missed. But that is his shot. That is something that they will need to look for in a lot of games. That's something that a lot of teams will probably concede. People will like to concede mid-range shots before they concede layups, right? So I think Rui might be able to find that shot later on in a few of these series. But overall, like I think that's kind of my opinion on the role players on the team. Troy Brown Jr. didn't really do anything. His last good game, in my opinion, off memory, is against the Clippers, but they obviously lost that game pretty badly. So this was kind of a good opportunity to see what the Lakers had in terms of role players, because Anthony Davis is going to show up, LeBron is going to show up. That's not a question. But it's those pieces around that are going to be the difference in a playoff series. And I'm very curious how, going forward, what they're going to look like in that Grizzlies series. I do have a video about the Grizzlies matchups coming out. I recorded that prior to this game because, just like everybody else predicted the Lakers would win, but man, I did not expect the win to come like this. I mean, this was tough. Last piece, Jared Vanderbilt as well. Like that was kind of underwhelming from him. He couldn't score. He has trouble scoring around the rim, which is unfortunate. If he had a dominant finishing game, this guy would be beyond elite. I mean, he's still a great defender, and I'm glad that he's in the starting lineup. I don't want to take anything away from him, but man, if he was able to finish like some of these other guys, man, this guy would be absolutely scary. But yeah, he struggled a bit. I think it's tough because he excels when they kind of give him a one-on-one matchup and say, okay, you need to try and shut this guy down. And, sometimes he succeeds, other times he doesn't. But it was kind of a weird game where they put him on Anthony Edwards, if memory serves, and, it wasn't he wasn't doing anything, but Anthony Edwards wasn't really doing anything either. I mean, Anthony Edwards was stinking it up all on his own, so they didn't really need Jared Vanderbilt to do that. So it was kind of just a waste of a rotation piece. But overall, yeah, tough win for the Lakers. Another thing I want to say is this defense. Like, man, they can turn this defense on, and it is scary. This looks like mid-2000s basketball when they turn this defense on. If it wasn't for those 3 free throws with a second left, they would have held the Timberwolves to 9 points in the fourth quarter. When do you ever see an NBA team held to single-digit points in a quarter? That maybe happens once a year, maybe. I mean, it was astonishing. And, part of it, most of it, I would say, is on the Lakers for being great defensively. I think the Timberwolves did contribute by shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, making bad passes, really bad turnovers when driving. Everyone was afraid to drive. There was just like no penetration in that fourth quarter at all. And so it's like, the second there was a sliver of daylight, they would try and penetrate and then immediately lose control of the ball, and AD was usually picking it up off the floor. So that Lakers defense, that is something that is genuinely elite level. That is something that arguably, we've seen the stats post-trade deadline, they might have the best defense in the entire NBA, at least in the Western Conference. So that's something that they can rely on. That's something that will absolutely be crucial in them winning games, especially when guys can't hit shots. LeBron James as well. Like, I don't want to take away anything from Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is the anchor of that defense, but LeBron James at age 38 defensively is still an absolute beast. I mean, I know he saves a lot of his energy for the offensive end, and he'll kind of pick his spots on defense. He'll pick those key possessions where he gets locked in. But there was a moment, I think it was Kyle Anderson was under the basket. It looked like he had a wide open layup, and LeBron just charges at him and closes in on him. And like, Kyle Anderson is too afraid to even shoot the ball. Like, people, when you see LeBron James charging right at you to try and contest your shot, that is terrifying, I'm sure. I can't even imagine what these players see when this guy's running at them. No wonder they're scared to take the shot. You see that with AD as well. Like, sometimes AD just being in the area, he doesn't even have to put his arms up half the time. People are missing layups, just blowing layups, because Anthony Davis is right there and they're afraid they're going to get blocked. So, I mean, with those two kind of in lockstep, this defense is going to be very hard to score. And it actually, as I was watching the game, it reminded me a lot of like what the 2020 Clippers were supposed to look like, with Paul George and Kawhi and Pat Bev and whoever else they said was great on that team defensively. They were, anticipating that Clippers team was just going to lock down teams in the fourth. And that's what this Lakers team did. Like, that is what it looked like. No scoring could occur for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it was frustrating the players. I can't imagine being a Timberwolves fan, seeing your lead evaporate, seeing you still have a chance, watching LeBron make some uncharacteristic turnovers, and you guys just cannot capitalize to save your life. That is something that is, I'm sure, is excruciating for a Timberwolves fan. But overall, those are my thoughts for the game. I thought Darvin Ham did a good job. I am curious to see, what happens in a 7-game series if Darvin Ham can make the adjustments. That was something that I think Frank Vogel did very well. So far I've been pretty impressed with Darvin Ham as a coach. I know he's had issues. I was not a fan with how they treated Frank Vogel, but I'm glad that his replacement, at least in my eyes, has been suitable. He's been maybe slightly worse than Frank Vogel, maybe slightly better in some cases offensively, but we're really going to see what he's made of when it comes to the postseason. But yeah, so those are my opinions on the game. It was a great watch. I'm super excited for the Lakers versus the Grizzlies on Sunday, and I'm going to be posting more content about different matchups to look out for in the Western Conference and in the Eastern Conference. So anyways, have a great day, guys.